Hello music fans, you're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music, and this is my segment, New Music's Live in 2025, where I talk about new albums that came out recently in metal, rock, and prog. And today I'm going to talk about 3 albums that came out on January 31st, 2025. There are actually 3 albums that I missed in my last video on this topic from a week ago that came out on January 24th, 2025 that I just didn't hear before I made my last video, but I've listened to them since and enjoyed them, so I figured I'd give them a mention. So let's start with those January 24 albums first, and I'll talk about them in my order of preference, starting with Fleshbore and their album Painted Paradise. This is the second album by this American band. It's technical melodic death metal, and I'm going to put it in my excellent tier. If you're a fan of bands like Allegiant and the Black Dahlia Murder, definitely check it out. It kind of sounds like those bands. Very technical, intense death metal, but with some melodic moments and compositions. Next, I want to mention Obverse and their self-titled EP, debut EP by this American band, and it's instrumental, experimental, progressive rock. I'm going to put this one in my very good tier. It would probably have made my excellent tier if it was a full length, but it's only 24 minutes long, so it kind of leaves me wanting more at the end, which in some ways is a good thing. This is an American band that features Dan Briggs from Between the Buried and Me on bass, and as usual, his bass playing is just amazing here. To round out the trio, there's Chris Allison on drums and Emily Hopkins on harp. They have a very full and big sound despite having only 3 band members. There's no guitar or vocals, but they still manage to make a lot of noise and a lot of cool sounds. And it's really interesting to hear the harp used so prominently in a prog rock band like that, especially an instrumental one. So definitely check this out if you like instrumental progressive rock that sounds unique. As I was listening to this, I feel like there must be some other instrument going on besides the harp, drums, and bass. There must be some keyboards or something, or else it's just interesting effects on the bass and harp. I couldn't really tell. There's no keyboards mentioned on their Bandcamp, but there's all these like cool ambient sounds and electronic sounding bits scattered throughout the music. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out Obverse and their self-titled debut EP. And then the last one from January 24th that I missed in my last video is Harakiri for the Sky and their album Scorched Earth, the 6th album by this Austrian band, and this is post-black metal with black gaze, atmospheric, and melodic black metal. And I'm going to put this one by Harakiri for the Sky in my good tier. It's good, just like their last album, Mare. It's pretty similar. Both are good albums. Neither of them really blew me away, so I don't think I'll return to them much. But I think they're a talented black metal band and kind of interested in what they do. I actually like the Radiohead cover that closes this album. That was probably my favorite one to listen to out of all the songs, so that's maybe part of the reason why it's only in my good tier. If like a cover song on your album is my favorite to listen to, that's kind of strange. They covered Street Spirit Fade Out by Radiohead. Pretty cool. Definitely check it out if you like post-black metal, black gaze, atmospheric black metal, that kind of stuff. Check out Harakiri for the Sky with Scorched Earth. Now onto the releases from January 31st. And all of these ones from January 31st, I'm going to put in my very good tier. They're all pretty similar in quality, really interesting to listen to, but not enough to call excellent or near masterpiece or masterpiece. So things that like maybe I'll listen to them again or if they're on, but I'm probably not going to like actively seek them out just because there's so much excellent music out there to discover. It's hard to spend much time going back to the ones that only get my very good score. So without further ado, let's kick that off with All That Remains and their album Antifragile. the 10th album by this American band, and this is melodic metalcore. Got some melodic death metal, hard rock, heavy metal, even some pop hook influences in the choruses. And this is their first album that doesn't feature All That Remains founding guitarist Ollie Herbert, who unfortunately died in 2018. So I was a bit worried about this album because I do feel like Ollie was the best part of the band All That Remains. But they got a solid replacement guitarist with Jason Richardson. So my favorite 3-album run from All That Remains was The Fall of Ideals in 2006, Overcome in 2008, and For We Are Many in 2010. And I knew if this album could match the quality of those, it could be a contender for Best Metalcore Album of the Year. But this band, All That Remains, has also released an album that I thought was terrible in 2017 called Madness, where they went more, was it 2017? Maybe I got that year wrong. But they went more like alternative and brought in pop and country influence in a way that was really cringeworthy to me. So if this album was like that, it could actually be among the worst and most disappointing albums of the year. But as I expected, it kind of falls somewhere in the middle. It wasn't as bad as their worst work, definitely not in their top few albums of their career, but also not in the bottom few either. Kind of middle of the road All That Remains album, and they're a very good metalcore band. So middle of the road is very good. But, I always hope for something to live up to the best that they've ever done, So the singles here were very good, at least. Not as great as my favorite tracks on my favorite 3 albums by them, which are kind of near masterpiece level for me. And I noticed a lot of stuff kind of sounds similar to things they've done in the past. The riff from 152 to 209 on the song Divine actually sounds a lot like an earlier All That Remains riff from Not Alone from their Fall of Ideals album, from 141 to 151. So I think that's pretty indicative of the sound of this album by All That Remains as a whole. It's a throwback to 2000s metalcore sound, which I enjoy, and they do it very well. But my critique is it kind of lacks anything fresh or innovative. Would have been cool if this album came out in the mid-2000s, but coming out this year, it sounds like a bit of a legacy nostalgia act, but a very good one, still going strong. I might revisit it again from time to time, but I'll mostly stick with my 3 favorite All That Remains albums that I mentioned. Next up, I want to talk about the Night Flight Orchestra and their album Give Us the Moon, the 7th album by this Swedish band, and it's hard rock with AOR, pop, and classic rock influences. Also in my very good tier. This band was started by Bjorn Strid and David Anderson from the great melodic death metal band Soilwork. But unfortunately, like with the last album I talked about, the guitarist David Anderson passed away in 2022. So this is the first album without him as well. Luckily, they maintain their greatness here. So check this out if you're a fan of Toto, Kiss, Ghost, Boston, Supertramp. It's kind of like that more accessible and catchy hard rock, AOR, pop rock bands, rather than anything. It's not really metal at all, which is kind of funny because it's a side project of members from Soilwork, which is a great metal band. But they don't do any screaming vocals here. It's just all catchy singing. Runaways is a good song that references Ontario, and it talks about Yonge and Dundas area of Toronto, which is an area I'm familiar with. So it's always interesting to hear about an area like that in a song that's kind of close to where I live in Ontario. So if that sounds cool to you, check out the Night Flight Orchestra by Give Us the Moon. Or sorry, the other way around. Give Us the Moon by the Night Flight Orchestra. And lastly, for this video, I want to talk about a supergroup called LS Dunes and their album Violet, the 2nd album by this American band. It's post-hardcore with emo and punk rock influences. I'm also putting this in my very good tier. This is a supergroup LS Dunes, fronted by Circa Survive, Seosin, and the Sound of Animals Fighting vocalist Anthony Green. And then also featuring My Chemical Romance guitarist Frank Iero, Coheed and Cambria guitarist Travis Stever, bassist Tim Payne, and drummer Tucker Rule from the band Thursday. So check it out if you're a fan of any of those bands mentioned that these members come from. It sounds pretty much like exactly what you'd expect if you knew these individuals from these bands came together. Catchy, emotional, post-hardcore songs with great guitar works, great melodies. They don't push the boundaries too much here, and they don't quite achieve the heights of the bands that they come from, like Coheed and Cambria or My Chemical Romance. But they do come close, and if you're longing for some music that sounds like that, made by very talented industry veterans, definitely check out Violet by LS Dunes. And that's it for my first impressions on these 6 albums that came out recently in 2025. What do you think of these albums? Let me know down below in the comments. Hopefully I inspired you to check out some new music that you hadn't heard before. And is there anything else that came out recently that I didn't mention that you think I might enjoy? Also let me know. My next video will likely be my top 10 albums of January 2025. Now I've listened to 25 releases that came out in January, so you got to think about it, figure out how to order my top 10 here, and that should likely be my next video. And then after that, I expect I'll be talking about new music that's coming out in February. I'll kind of mention what I'll be listening to in February. I might even include March in this and just list out all the albums that I plan to listen to in February and March. So stay tuned if you want more album recommendations of new stuff to check out. And hit that subscribe button if you like metal, rock, and prog music and you like some of the recommendations that I've been giving you. It helps grow the channel. Stay tuned. Peace out.